Hey up, and welcome to Corey's Corner. Welcome to what is going to be probably a bit of a different kind of video to what I usually make. Usually I'm complaining about something, to be honest, and it's a little bit, it's not that different, but I'm going to be giving my thoughts on some things. So, over the last week, Captain's Log, Stardate, 19th, June 19th, 2025. So yeah, I've been doing a kind of be a vegan for a week challenge. Today is actually, technically it's now Thursday. It's like I'm such a fucking degenerate, dude. It's like 4 in the morning, and I'm probably gonna go to sleep in like a few hours. But oh well, So whatever. But no, I've been doing this kind of be a vegan for a week challenge, and technically I have like 2 days left. It's going to be a full 7 days from Friday to Friday. So today and tomorrow are going to be like my last days doing this challenge. But I wanted to talk a bit about it, why I chose to do this, what it's been like, and kind of give my thoughts on more philosophical kind of things. And also I recorded and am recording, because I guess the week isn't over yet, footage of the things I'm eating, and it's fucking awful, dude. I was really unprepared for this. I threw myself in at the deep end. I thought, why not? I'll give it a shot, and I'll get to how that is going and how that's gone in just a second. But I want to talk about philosophical stuff too. Maybe if this isn't your cup of tea, like that's fine. You don't have to watch the video, but I want to start by building. I want to be brief with this because my videos have a tendency to kind of go on way too long, and I want to be succinct with what I have to say here. But I have thought about this. I have thought this through, and so I'll give my opinion on this stuff. So I'm not like a vegan. I wouldn't say I'm a vegan. Yeah, I'm doing a vegan for a week challenge, but that doesn't make me a vegan. I guess for a week it does. But I'm taking it very seriously. By the way, I was gonna do this like a month ago, but I kept putting it off because I had like meat and different, animal product. You can't eat any animal products at all, dude. And I was looking at stuff like preparing for it, and even like yogurt I had and stuff was like not vegan. I was like, okay, well, I got to eat. I can't let this go off, So kept putting it off, but I was like, no, I want to do this really properly. I don't want to cheat at all, So, and I've been doing it very properly, and there were times when I was kind of wavering, I was thinking like, I don't know if I can see this through, but it's looking like I'm going to do a whole week. And I'll talk about the challenges of that in just a second, but I'm going to start by building a brief ethical framework. So when it comes to ethics, I want to make more philosophical videos in the future, actually, but because I think I have other things to say about this, maybe, I don't know, but I think when it comes to our morality, when we think what is a moral thing to do, there are two factors we need to look at, or rather, there are two steps for getting to where we want to be. For us to be able to make moral statements like this is a moral thing to do, this is immoral, so on. There are two steps we have to take. The first is kind of to say, okay, let's take the example of eating animals. To kill an animal to eat it, is that moral or immoral? And you might say, okay, it's moral. And then the question is like, okay, why? Like, why is that moral? And you might say, oh, well, it's moral, because obviously you wouldn't kill a person, so as not to eat them especially. So you'd say, okay, is it because animals are like not as smart as us? And the thing is, like, there are dumb people, there are retards, and you might say, okay, well, do we need to do? Should we kill them? And some people might say yes, but also like a pig is smart, and a rat probably. Some animals are smarter than newborn children, but it goes against people's intuitions to say like, oh, we should be able to kill a newborn child, but not a pig. And if you want to take that position, fine, I guess. I don't think it's consciousness, so you say, okay, well, it's something else. I don't think it's, intelligence, so you say, okay, fine, it's something else. Maybe it's like consciousness, but clearly you observe these animals and they are conscious. They do appear to be conscious, so how can it be that? And all these different factors, and you can go down these different things, and none of them, in my eyes, are particularly convincing. But also, the second step is, where do these moral intuitions come from in the first place? Because everything is built off something else, right? If you say it's immoral to eat animals because they suffer, well, why is it immoral to cause something to suffer? And if you go back however many number of steps, you eventually get to kind of a basal axiomatic position where you have to just say like, this is just immoral, and I can't really like it's wrong to cause unnecessary suffering to living beings, be it physical or mental or whatever, right? And you say, okay, well, why? And it's like, I don't think you can really prove this, and this is why I don't necessarily think, one of the reasons anyway, I don't necessarily think like morality is objective. I think this is why I said I wanted to be brief. So I think morality is as objective as observed reality. so if that, did I say that right? Yeah, morality is as objective as observed reality. So if somebody says, like, for example, 1+1 = 2, or, you know, I don't know, the moon orbits around the Earth, like, how do you know, right? Like, can you be 100% objectively sure? And you can say, oh, well, maybe we live in the Matrix, maybe 1+1 doesn't equal 2 everywhere in the universe, or something, I don't know, you know. And you might say, okay, well, like, realistically, when we speak about these things, we all know what we're talking about. We don't clarify these statements by saying, oh, well, you know, actually it might not be true. So I don't see why we do that with morality. When we say, like, it's wrong to cause unnecessary suffering to living things, that's something that basically everyone agrees with. And even if someone disagrees with it, I don't think they really have a morality. They're just kind of hedonistic and, you know, like a libertine or something, you know. I don't think they would purport to have any kind of morality at all, you know. So I think when it comes to observing these so-called moral facts, we just kind of need to accept that it's not necessarily totally objective, but we just need to move on from that anyway. Jesus, man, this is why I said I wanted to be quick. I don't want this to go on, because I know there's quite a few things I want to talk about. But yeah, anyway. Moving on. So let's practically apply this to animals. What is my ethics around animals and animal suffering? Well, I would disagree. I've been watching lots of vegan stuff, and this is I went down a bit of a rabbit hole, kind of out of nowhere. I've always known about veganism, and I've always known that, like, factory farming is a thing, and this stuff is fairly horrific. I've always kind of understood that, and I guess I wouldn't say it was cognitive dissonance, but it was just kind of laziness on my own part, like intellectual laziness. I just never really looked into it, which is understandable to some extent. I'll talk about that in a second too. Why I think we're living in a unique. Oh, I'll talk about it now. Actually, I think when it comes to factory farming, I'd say factory farming is an immoral thing, right? I personally would disagree with a lot of real vegans, because I guess I'm not a real vegan, because I said what I said to myself is, I'm going to do this vegan for a week challenge, and after that all bets are off, like, no promises. I may just go back to being fully, you know, carnivorous again. Not that I was like kind of carnivorous, but, you know, I could do, you know, no strings attached, just try it for a week. That's what I said. So I guess I'm not a real vegan. And what vegans might say is that they might say, like, it's wrong to take the life of an animal unnecessarily, because or you can get all of the nutrients you need. You don't need meat to survive. You don't need animal products, like, technically. And it's like, okay, I mean, that's debatable anyway. I haven't looked into the science. That may or may not be true. I don't really care. That's not my point. But my point would be, like, I don't think it's actually wrong to kill an animal. And the reason I think this, we're going to get into more morality stuff, is I think there's two reasons why it can be wrong to kill a living being. So the first reason is, obviously, you're inflicting some kind of harm or pain or suffering on them, right? So if you have a human being, you might say it's wrong to kill them because it's hurting them. But you could easily imagine killing somebody in their sleep, for example, and you could just cut their head off or shoot them in the head and they just die. You could kill them instantly, sneak up behind them. They have no idea what's happening to them. And like an animal, you could imagine animals being killed quite easily, quite quickly, quite painlessly, you know. And in an ideal world, that is the case, and I'll get to that in just a second. But that's the first reason I think it's wrong to kill somebody. You know, obviously, to inflict suffering. And that's also one of the reasons I always avoid buying, and always have avoided buying, like, I think it's like kosher meat and like halal meat. And part of the reason I don't buy halal meat specifically is because I don't want to support, you know, how do I say this without getting in trouble? Let's put it this way: the GR. Let's put it that way. If you know, you know. Okay, I don't want to support this kind of stuff in my country. But furthermore, I think, you know, I remember being in school and they taught us about, like, halal slaughter, and the way they kill the animal. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but they hang it upside down and they, like, slit its throat and they wait for the blood to, like, pour out. I mean, it's fucking awful. And it's being told that, like, this is somehow ethical, but then again, this is the same guy who married, like, a 7-year-old girl, so I don't know what we'd expect. But that's a whole video for another day. Let's not even go there. I don't know. Yeah, it's probably pissing people off. Okay, but the second reason these are the two what I would go, and I came up with these. I'm sure someone else has probably expressed this opinion before, but I just came up with these on my own. This is what I call the 2 rules of killing. That these, if you don't break either of these rules, it's perfectly fine to kill whatever it is you're killing, okay? So like a flower, I don't think anyone would say it's wrong to pluck a flower out of the ground or cut a tree down for its wood. There might be like peripheral reasons, like, it's a pretty tree, or it's a special tree that's really old or something, or whatever else, or existing animals that are conscious and have some more moral worth maybe live in the tree, but I don't think anyone would say necessarily there's anything wrong with killing a tree. Certainly not in the same way that there's something wrong with killing a person, even though a tree is a living organism, right? The second rule of killing is that you're denying them, whoever you're killing, you're denying them the future lived experience of whatever it is that they are. So if they're a human being, even if you kill them in their sleep, and they don't feel any pain, they have no idea, they just go to sleep one day and never wake up, right? You shoot them in the head, they die instantly, whatever. You're still depriving them of the future experience of a human being. And being a human being can be very fulfilling, and there's lots of it's pretty good to be a human being. It's pretty neat, I think the human experience is, and most people intuitively I think agree with this too, is that it's morally speaking, it has some kind of special significance to it that doesn't really get applied to basically anything else. And you might just call that speciesism, right? Like it's because it's easy for me to say that because I'm a human, but I think that really is true. The fact that you can even conceptualize that I can even sit here and have this conversation and put myself in the shoes of an animal, or in the hooves or whatever of an animal, of another animal, I should say, because of course human beings are animals. It's quite significant, of course. Like, I don't think anyone would really deny that. But the thing is, this is something I've noticed about vegans, watching lots of vegan content and arguments and debates and stuff, which, I'm a sad person. I do that in my free time, which I have plenty of these days. Something I noticed about vegans is they tend to talk about animals as this kind of like monolithic group. Like, there's human beings and then there's all other animals. And they're trying to extend human rights, or the human right to not be killed or tortured or whatever, to animals. But animals aren't really like a group, like a whole monolithic group. Of course, there's a famous kind of thought experiment, I guess you'd call it. It's like, would you rather? This is how it goes. Would you rather squash a fly, like swat a fly away and kill a fly, or punch a cow in the face? And most people, and I would as well, would argue or would answer, I'd rather kill the fly, because if you apply my rules of killing to that, you'd say that the first of all, you're causing more suffering to the cow than you are to the fly, but also the experience of being a cow. I don't know what it's like to be a cow, but I can quite easily imagine it's probably more significant and fulfilling, and whatever words you want to use, whatever it is exactly, it's hard to conceptualize, but whatever that is, much more significant in a cow than a fly. Like, I think it's probably more significant in a person than it is in a cow, right? Okay, but I don't think it's wrong to kill an animal as long as you don't violate any of these 2 rules. Like I said, as long as it's in life and in death, as in how it's killed, is ethical, it's not caused to suffer. And maybe there are certain kinds of animals where it is wrong to kill them, like, for example, dolphins and elephants and chimpanzees. Maybe it's wrong to kill them. Maybe I don't know at what point, I can't draw a line anywhere. I don't know at what point the animal experience becomes human-like enough, or maybe not even human-like, but becomes developed enough in its own right, maybe in a very different way that we can't even understand, to be protected, and say that even if the animal isn't suffering, it's still wrong to kill it, right? I don't know, and I would always err on the side of caution, but just because I can't draw the line, just because I don't know exactly where to draw the line, doesn't mean there's not a line. Like, at what point does a group of people become a crowd? At what point does a building become a skyscraper? Like, I don't know exactly when, but we all can agree that these are things that exist, right? Or maybe not, but that's another topic for another day. Now let's get even more practical. Factory farming. Factory farming is a term that gets thrown around a lot, and people kind of take it for granted. They're like, I hear people say this all, because I've been talking to people as well, and this is, I know maybe this video a lot of people will disagree with this, which is obviously, fine. I always welcome other perspectives. And you guys would actually be, if someone could present an argument to say, like, it's actually totally fine to eat meat, and you can do it, and whatever else, like, you'd actually be doing me a big favor, because I don't want to be vegan. I love eating meat, or loved, I guess, because I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go back. I really don't know, and I'll get to that in a second too. But, like, like, please, liberate me, free me from the chains of being vegan. You would be doing me a massive favor. Like, I don't want to believe that this is true. But, when we come to factory farming, I talked to some people and they were like, yeah, it's wrong. Factory farming is wrong. That's why and you see people say this all the time. I try to get my meat from ethical sources. I get free range eggs instead of, whatever other kind of egg there is. I try and make sure that, whatever. And it's a kind of a cop-out answer almost to me. It feels like a very easy way out. But the truth is, I think it's something like, it's more than 90%. It's something like 95 something, maybe even more percent of all of the meat, at least in England, which is, obviously where I live, in supermarkets. If you go to the supermarket and you buy meat there's an overwhelming chance it comes from a factory farm. And you might say, well, why are you vegan? Everything I just said, not I'm vegan. I get, why are you trying veganism? Why are you entertaining this when you just said that there's nothing wrong with killing animals necessarily? I think even inflicting some amount of suffering on an animal may be permissible. I think you could make not that necessarily that this is an argument that I would make, but I think you could make the argument that as long as the degree to which an animal suffers in a farming environment is less than what it would suffer in the wild or be likely to suffer in the wild, I think you could make the argument that even that is morally permissible, maybe. But factory farming, there's no other way to say it. This stuff's horrific, and I looked into this when I was vegan, and I'm glad I looked at this when I was doing the vegan stuff, because if I was eating meat and I looked into this stuff, it would have made me feel really bad. Like, some of this stuff, like, let's not beat around the bush. Let's not live in non-reality. The animals are tortured to death. This is really, really, really bad. And I think that honestly, in 100 years, I don't know exactly when, but I think people will look back on this in the same way that people look back on many of and there's no shortage of them, let's face it, moral evils from our past when people used to do kinds of crazy things, and we look back and say, how the hell did people, even think this was, you can't even, like, it was obviously these things were evil, but we also think, like, how could they even think this? Put another, a good example, when the British Empire went into India, there was this practice called sati, I don't know how to pronounce it, Sati, I think. And basically what this was is, if a man died, a married man died, his widow, he would be given this big funeral pyre where they get loads of wood and stuff, and they get fuel or whatever, and they set it on fire. It's a big, like a bonfire at a funeral, and the woman, the widow, would be placed on top of this and basically would be burnt alive with her husband's corpse. It's called sati, right? And I think most people look at this and say, this is barbaric, this is evil, this is wrong. One of those things where people think, like, how did anyone even think that this was okay? And the British Empire came into India and said, I'll get to that in a second, actually. But that's just one example. I think people will look back on factory. Because like I said, I don't think killing animals to eat them is necessarily immoral. But I think people will look back specifically on factory farming, and they will look at that and say, at best, they'll say this was a necessary evil, maybe. I think more realistically, people will look at this with horror. I really do, I really do. And I don't mean to sound like a faggot or something, like, oh, think of the animals, but like kind of think of the animals, this stuff is really bad. And even eggs, dude, like when people say like free range buy free range eggs instead of like, whatever store bought, I don't know, whatever the alternative is. When it comes to eggs, the kinds of chickens that lay eggs are different from the kind of chickens that are harvested for their meat. And obviously when you have an egg that is laid, so let's say these aren't eggs that are being harvested to be eaten, these are eggs that are being laid to get chickens that then will lay more eggs, right? So they can keep the egg production rolling. And obviously about half of the eggs are going to be male, and the male chickens obviously don't lay any eggs. They don't have any meat on their bones, essentially. They're different from the kind of chickens that are reared for their, what vegans would say for their flesh. I don't think there's anything wrong with the term meat. Maybe I'm not red-pilled enough on the vegan stuff. Yeah, we'll see what I say in a month. I don't know. But either way, these chicks are born, and there'll be a worker at the factory, I don't know, conveyor belt there, and they'll have they'll be checking out the chicks and say, okay, this one's a female, put it on the conveyor belt, off you go, lay a bunch of eggs. This one's male, it's hatched, and it's, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds of life as it's hatched, put on this conveyor belt, and it's rolled into this like grinder where it's essentially churned up alive. It's not killed or anything, and it's grinded up in this way. It's alive for about 30 seconds, and that's its death. And these are free range eggs, by the way. This is all kinds of eggs. This is So this is why I say I really, and I'm not trying to be graphic or virtue signal, like, oh no, I'm trying to be like, create some kind of really startling image here to shock people into becoming vegan. That's not what I'm trying to do at all. I think in terms of the amount of suffering animals endure, that's actually some small mercy, to be honest, that these things are killed so early on. And they're killed on a very large scale as well. In fact, the whole time that this video has been going on, about 20 minutes at this point, there's no doubt, like, I don't know, many animals, like more than you think, have been slaughtered in this way, in very horrific ways. So this is something we need to treat with serious gravity. This is not something that can be hand waved away with, cognitive dissonance. Oh, well, what people joke about. Maybe people would be laughing at this video. They're like, oh, it's just a joke. Who cares? I like my bacon. I like my eggs. Fine. I like my bacon too. I like my eggs too. But we need to be, if we're going to be adults about this, if we're going to be morally mature, and if we want people to take us ethically seriously, especially in the future, if we want people in 200 years to look back on us and say this, these were moral people, I think we need to, we can't just laugh this off. This is a serious point. Okay, so based on everything I just said, you might think that I'm against factory farming, and the answer is actually a bit more complicated than that. I think from a technical point of view, technically speaking, let's say, it is morally permissible to knowingly buy meat from factory farms, given everything I just said. And you might say, how can that be possible? Well, let me explain. So, like I laid out my laws of killing, because this is my argument, essentially, because one could conceive of a world in which none of these rules are violated, and you could have animals that are raised ethically, they're killed humanely, even though I know a lot of vegans would say that's an oxymoronic term. Fine, whatever, I disagree. Depending on the level of, we can debate where we draw the line, like I already discussed. We have these animals raised ethically, killed ethically, so all this stuff is sourced in this manner, not these factory farming conditions. You could conceive of a world where that is the case, and there are, I'm sure, examples where people have chickens in their back garden that lay eggs, and they just use of course, I don't think anyone would really be opposed to that who's a reasonable person. Probably wrong, but oh well. Because one could conceive of a world, therefore the moral onus or the moral obligation, in my eyes, rests not with the consumer who is buying these products. It actually rests with the farm or the factory farm operators or owners, right? Let me make another analogy. So we all have phones. I have my phone right here. And in our phones and our computers and our games consoles and all this stuff, there are rare earth minerals that are needed to, they're vital components of these devices or these machines, and almost all of them are mined from mines in Africa they have like child slaves essentially working in these mines, very dangerous conditions. Lots of them die, lots of them get injured, and we might say that's also immoral. Like, this is also a bad thing, you might say. But is it morally permissible? And I'd say because one could conceive of a world in which these mines are run with tighter safety regulations, where they're not child slaves who are being used in the mines, where they have actual, they would sacrifice profits for these, ethical concerns. Because you could imagine a world like that, you don't have to, I'd say, like, to, maybe some people just intuitively disagree with this, which is fine, but I'd say you don't have a moral obligation to not buy from these companies. But just because I wouldn't make the same, like, it's wrong to buy meat from a factory farm because the obligation lies not with you but with the owner. Okay, whatever. But does that mean that you should do it? I would say, like, just because you can, like, I wouldn't want it to be like illegal. Like, I wouldn't punish people for doing that. Doesn't mean that I think it's like morally permissible, and that's why I would say, to summarize, factory farming is immoral, and the people who are doing it, should be, criminally liable. But the people who are buying from it, because you could conceive of a world where that's not the case, I would say that they don't have a moral obligation to it. And I would say I wouldn't make the statement you must not do this thing, but I would say you shouldn't. Okay, and that's why I give this a go, and that's why I think I'm going to try and stick to that as much as I can. And let me talk about except because this video is getting on now, let me talk about exceptions. So, this summer I'm going to be going away on holiday to Spain, going to a big all-inclusive place. My, family's paying for me to go. Very spoiled, I know, going on holiday, and it's going to be one of these, there's going to be one of these kind of buffets, we've all been on holiday, maybe, probably not actually, but, you go to these places, they have all this food, a lot of meat there, right? And it's all free, it's help you, you're not going out to eat at a restaurant or anything. All the food is already there. Let's say another analogy. Holiday time, maybe Christmas time, you go home for the holidays, you're with your family, and Christmas dinner comes up to you on the plate, and there's lots of meat, right? There's a lot, whatever. I don't want meat is served, like stuffing and turkey and whatever else, Christmas food. Is it morally permissible to eat it? And I would actually say yes, it is. And why? Even if we say that financially supporting, this stuff is wrong, whatever, I would actually say there's nothing at all wrong with that, in the same way that if you're walking down the street and there's some roadkill on the side of the road, this is an animal that's already been killed. You had nothing to do with it. You didn't request this to happen. You didn't, like you might say that you're paying someone to kill an animal, to torture it to death, to eat it. And some people might object to the term torture to death. And I've looked into this, and there really is no other way forward. I'm sorry, and it's not always the case, but let's be real here, okay? Like, I'm just saying. I'm sorry, I'm just saying. You come across this roadkill. Now, obviously, roadkill is not as nice as a bit of turkey and stuffing on Christmas morning, but it's the same concept. I haven't requested for this to be put here. I haven't come here specifically looking for this. Even if I had, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that either. So I think that's permissible. And you might say I'm just trying to weasel my way out so I can justify eating meat over summer. And maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But I think there's a convincing point to be made there. Anyway. I guess I'll wrap up quickly talking about how my week has gone. And there's also, I also filmed, and am filming, I guess, because the week isn't over yet, a bunch of footage of the stuff I'm eating. It's been fucking awful, dude. Let me just say that if I do go forward doing this more, I'm gonna plan it out much more properly. I'm gonna give it a better chance. Maybe I'll fall back, maybe I'll be like pescatarian or vegetarian for a while, before I go back to the vegan thing, and then plan it out over the course of maybe over the summer I'll plan it out more, do that, and then when I come back to university next year I'll do that. Maybe that will work. I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably make more videos about this in the future, I think. But some of the things I was eating, I went to the store and it's impossible to find anything. I saw 3 things that were vegan uniquely. Obviously I'm already buying fruit and vegetables and stuff, but I saw the fake meat, the corn stuff or whatever, which is actually surprised me. It was actually all right, found that. I got almond milk. I will never drink soy milk ever. That's another problem with the vegan stuff, is lots of soy involved. When vegan, this is one of the arguments for veganism I found to be very unconvincing, is they were oh, it's only a very minor inconvenience. All the suffering, it's a very minor inconvenience not to eat meat. And it's but it's not, it's a huge inconvenience. Not just I found it really, really difficult to be vegan this week, not just because of the temptation to eat meat. Have I been tempted to eat meat this week? Yeah, sort of, but not really. I haven't been that the willpower hasn't been that. If I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. I go vegan for a week, I'll do it. I'm not going to fail, okay? But I found it difficult in terms of literally sourcing the food, right? There was the fake meat. Sorry, I didn't finish my point. There was the fake meat. There was the almond milk, and there was what was the other stuff? I don't know. Aside from the fruit and veg, pasta you can have and things like that, grains or whatever, bread. I had a lot of sandwiches. And there was something else. What the fuck was that? I don't know. I thought there was something else, but maybe there wasn't. I don't know. Maybe I made that up. But I went out a couple of nights this week with my friend, and we'd go into the slop shop. The 24-hour convenience store that I call the slop shop. And nothing is vegan. Literally nothing was vegan. And I know I felt like such a cuck, reading the labels. I felt so stupid, oh, people are going to know that I'm vegan and stuff. And when I started out, I was more apprehensive. But over the week, like I said, I've looked more into the stuff. And I feel much more I hate to sound smug and stuff, but I do feel kind of sense of moral superiority, honestly. And maybe that sounds bad, but I don't know. I really do, And anyway, I was talking about the British Empire in India. And they marched in and they saw this sati stuff going on, and they were like, this is bad, this is immoral, and we are going to forcefully put a stop to this. There's no discussion, there's no, it's cultural differences, fuck you, we're not going to do this anymore. And this appealed to like the and because everyone's always saying these days, oh, this is colonial colonizer stuff and enforcing their values on, and it's like, yes, it is, and that's based as fuck, and this is like the Anglo in me, that I like me personally, like 100% like Germanic Anglo DNA, Dutch DNA coursing through my veins. And the Roman Empire too, which was based as fuck, versus the lame-ass Celtic barbarians, dude. Britain belongs to the Anglo-Germans, dude. It's not the Celts, dude. Doesn't like but the German Anglo, like the imperial, like enforcing your values on people. We've been told like this is bad. There's no objective right and wrong. Cultural value. It's just cultural differences. And I say maybe there are cultural differences, but I'd say that Western liberal, in a classical sense, that this kind of culture, these kinds of values that we have are superior in as an objective sense as can possibly be described in terms of moral values, which I touched upon earlier. They are better than any other culture in the world, and much better than Indian culture, but don't even get me started on that. Dude, these people won't eat a cow, but they'll eat their own shit, but that's a whole other dude. I've talked about Muslims, I've talked about Indians, dude. Oh, no. Dude, that's like 4 billion people I probably pissed off in this video, but well, it's kind of what I do. And yeah, going forward, dude, like if you said to me right now, you are now going to be vegan for the rest of your life, or even just vegetarian, whatever, you can't eat meat ever again. If you said that to me a week ago before I started this challenge, I'd say, no, I'm just doing it for a week. I'm not going to, whatever. But if you said that to me now, I wouldn't be happy, but I honestly don't think I'd care that much. I think I could really cope with it. And like I said, I'm really going to sit down, probably as soon as I finish recording this video, actually, now, probably going to sit down and plan out some proper meals. Because all I was eating, I'll show the footage, right, that'll play in a second when I wrap this audio up. I'll show the stuff I recorded. But I was having things like pickle and avocado sandwiches with like ketchup, and I couldn't even have mustard because it was not vegan. I'm such an autist, dude. Holy shit. Because mustard isn't even fucking vegan, like why not? But the ketchup I had apparently was, so I had that. Just pasta with tomatoes and tomato sauce and nothing. I mean, it's awful. What the things I've lost lots of weight, but in terms of my like physiological stuff, I'm not trying to be too graphic or whatever, but I've gone to the toilet a lot and it's not been solid, let's put it that way. Splattered like Ronnie McNutt's brains all over the porcelain, dude. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. Absolutely revolting, dude. Just hot, wet shit, rancid coming out my asshole. It wouldn't be a Corey video without a gory, disgusting jump scare right at the end. Speaking of which, though, my libido is not any lower. I'm still gooning hard. Want to make a video talking about that too. Record that over when I'm with my family. So when I'm hanging out, when I'm chillaxing with my family at the end of June, I'll upload a video about me jerking off and stuff. That's nice. Yeah, what other felt kind of tired, felt kind of hazy. It's hard to know if that's over the vegan thing though, because I'm not the healthiest person anyway in terms of like my sleep schedule and stuff. But yeah, no, it's a significant loss in weight, probably because I've only been having about like 1,000 calories a day. But obviously none of that stuff is sustainable, which is why I really want to sit down. But I think you could probably survive like this, but we'll see. Worst case scenario, I'll probably be like pescatarian or something for a while, but we'll see. Anyway, yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on all of this. If you guys want to do something similar, I appreciate feedback. There's obviously lots and lots more I could say. This could be like a 3-hour video, and I probably will talk more about this in the future. And if there's other philosophical topics you want me to cover, questions, please let me know. Anything at all. I'd love to hear what you guys want me to talk about. Anyway, yeah, I'll roll the footage of my week if you care, And yeah, thanks for watching, and that's pretty much it.